Good evening and thank you for joining us. Hong Kong's Q1 tourist figures experienced an increase of 17% year-on-year, with local hotels having reached an occupancy rate of 90% over the course of the mainland's Golden Week holidays in February. This as the government said the city's tourism sector continues to experience positive momentum and expects the total number of tourists this year to reach around 53 million. Timothy Lee tells us more.
Hong Kong's tourism rebound continues its positive trajectory as authorities announced tourist figures having risen to 14.3 million over the course of the first quarter of this year. That's an increase of about 17% year-on-year. The government further estimated that total tourist figures this year could reach 53.8 million, which is an increase of another 8% year-on-year. Secretary for Culture, Sports and Tourism, Rosanna Law, stressed authorities are striving to take advantage of any opportunity to promote the cultural sector, as well as further connecting the fields of sports and tourism, all in hopes of attracting more visitors to the city. The measures seem to have come to fruition, as the local hotel sector noted occupancy rates over the course of the mainland's Golden Week holidays having risen from 87% last year to 90% this year. But a lawmaker who previously worked in the hotel sector said the average number of days that overnight tourists stay in hotels have dropped from 3.2 days 2 years ago to just 3.1 last year. Lawmaker Alan Chan urged the government to drop the 3% hotel accommodation tax, adding that the lack of spending among tourists and hotels have been a major shock to the industry. This, as the Culture, Sports and Tourism chief emphasized the government has no current plans to end the taxation scheme, stressing that the measure has no major effect on tourism in the city. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
Hong Kong's February retail sales increased by 19.3% year-on-year, marking 10 months of consecutive growth. The Census and Statistics Department noted that the provisional estimate for total retail sales in February has reached $3.5 billion. Combined with the figures in January, total retail sales rose by 11.8% compared with the same period last year. Hailing the city's strong economic momentum and surge in tourist figures, a government spokesperson said it will continue to closely monitor the development of the geopolitical situation and its effects on the local market. Hong Kong's upcoming Easter and Qingming holiday period is poised to offer citizens an extended break, but soaring airfares are pushing travelers to consider overnight flights and alternative routes.
Long holiday beckons as this year's Easter holiday coincides with the Qingming festival. Together, they give workers at least 5 public holidays. By taking just 3 days of leave next Wednesday to Friday, the break can be stretched to a total of 10 days. However, several local airlines have raised fuel surcharges starting today. Cumulatively, the surcharges nearly doubled compared with early last month. Budget carrier Hong Kong Express has also increased cabin baggage fees since Sunday, with some fare categories rising by as much as 30%. For those planning trips at the last minute, ticket prices could be steep. For example, a one-way economy class ticket departing on the first day of the holiday to London on an evening flight arriving the next morning can set you back nearly $42,000. A travel guide editor suggests delaying departures, opting for red-eye or overnight flights, or even taking alternative routes to trim costs.
我最近就係坐高鐵去台灣啦。
Editor Lo Feng cited his own recent trip as an example, traveling by high-speed rail to Xiamen, then transferring by ferry to Kinmen. And you can take another high-speed rail to travel around Taiwan. The total round-trip transport costs just over $1,000. As for the mainland, while there is no Easter holiday, the Qingming Festival creates a long weekend from Saturday to Monday. Some mainland holidaymakers have taken additional leave to extend their break. This tourist says she had taken 3 extra days off for a 6-day trip. Timothy Choi, executive director of the Hong Kong Tourism Association, says 30 to 40% of flights on April 4th are already full, much higher than typical Sundays. The Immigration Department estimates around 6.44 million passenger trips will pass through Hong Kong during the holiday period, with about 84% via land boundary crossings. The Transport Department has urged travelers to plan ahead and make greater use of public transport.
At least 5 people were killed in an Israeli strike early Wednesday in Beirut's Jenin neighborhood. This comes as Israel's defense minister outlined plans for Israeli invasion of Lebanon while speaking to military officials. Danny Rao tells us more.
At least 5 people were killed in an Israeli strike early Wednesday in Beirut's Jinnah neighborhood. Lebanon's health ministry said in a preliminary count 21 people were also wounded in the strike in Jinnah. The strike came without warning and Israel did not declare the target. When it does, it often says it is targeting operatives from the Hezbollah militant group. Emergency workers rushed to the scene to search for victims. Meanwhile, Israel's military confirmed 4 more soldiers have been killed in Lebanon as its forces and Hezbollah militants continue to trade fire. An Israeli military spokesperson said a total of 10 soldiers have died since Israel launched its invasion of southern Lebanon. Israel's defense minister outlined plans for an Israeli invasion of Lebanon while speaking to military officials. Defense Minister Israel Katz reiterated the Israeli military aims to control the area south of the Litani River, some 30 kilometers north of the border between the 2 neighboring countries. He said Israel would prohibit the return of 600,000 Lebanese who fled the area over the last few weeks until safety and security were ensured for residents of Israel's north. Israel says it needs to establish a zone of control in the depopulated south to shield its own northern communities, which have faced daily rocket and drone attacks since Iran-backed Hezbollah joined the wider Middle East war on March 2nd. Elsewhere, United Nations Under-Secretary-General for Peace Operations Jean-Pierre Lacroix told the Security Council politicians in Israel now openly speak of the intention of an extended so-called security or buffer zone, with the destruction of villages along the Blue Line and several bridges across the Litani River.
Politicians in Israel now openly speak of the intention of an extended so-called security or buffer zone, with the destruction of villages along the Blue Line and several bridges across the Litani River. In the last week only, thousands of trajectories were observed in both directions, as well as attacks by fighter aircraft and unmanned aerial vehicles. The Israel Defense Forces are advancing deeper into Lebanon, and clashes have been observed, including in very close proximity to UNIFIL headquarters in Nakura, which has been the subject of multiple impacts.
At least 3 members of UNIFIL were killed earlier this week in 2 separate attacks. Dan Rao, TV News.
Welcome back. Residents of Cuba's Matanzas, where the Russian oil tanker docked Tuesday morning, remain apprehensive about life in the Caribbean country, despite the vessel's arrival. The tanker marked the first oil shipment to Cuba since January. But the day the Anatoly Elotkin entered Matanzas Bay, more than half of the city was without electricity. Without electricity, water cannot be pumped into houses, forcing residents to make trips to the nearest water source and carry heavy buckets home. Residents interviewed at the town remained pessimistic about the future, not believing an oil tanker could make a difference. A Wanful Court electrician on Wednesday said he turned off the main switches to firefighting pump room across 8 blocks. This incidentally would also have turned off the fire alarm system, but the electrician claimed he had no idea. This came at the independent committee's hearing on the Tai Po blaze. Mimosa Ngai reports.
The 7th public hearing resumed at Central City Gallery. Questioned by Victor Dose, the lead senior counsel of the independent committee, Lok Xin-ying, a clerk at the Wanful Court's property management office, continued to testify. Lok recalled that Prestige Construction and Engineering, their estate's contractor, had insisted on repairing the freshwater tanks because some parts of them were damaged. She said Prestige had planned to replace the freshwater tanks temporarily with the fire services tanks. Under the project, the fire services tanks would be changed to the freshwater tank standard. Lok said it was common to see more than 100 proxy votes placed in the voting boxes to decide on key issues at the owners' corporation meetings. At the meeting to select willpower, the estate's consultant, Lok, said that about 200 to 300 proxy ballots were used in the voting process. While Lok said some people who attended the meetings might not have been owners, the clerk said she had never tried to verify their identities. Wanful Court electrician Lok Guo admitted to having turned the firefighting pump room main switches off in all 8 blocks, based on a work request by Prestige, who wished to empty some water tanks. He was aware that only a registered fire services installation contractor could handle the job, so he asked Lok, who was in the management office at the time, before conducting the work. Lok recalled Lok saying that Prestige required their help and that with an electrician's license, he should help them. While realizing he wasn't qualified to do so, Law pressed ahead because he feared consequences for not complying with orders. Asked if he knew that would have led to the shutdown of the fire alarm systems, Law said he had no idea. And if he did, Law said he wouldn't have done it. Technical officers Lam Man-yan, who had left his post at one food court for about 6 months, said he had no clue that his 2 colleagues, including Law, had switched off the power to the alarm systems. Lam said the 2 technicians would only report to him when they had challenging tasks, and otherwise he wouldn't know what the 2 had been up to. Justice David Look, the committee's chairman, interrupted and asked, "What's your role then?" Lam stressed that he would have stopped Law from doing the work if he was at one food court back then. During the hearing, Justice David Look once again urged the public to take an objective attitude towards the witnesses. Members 9, TVB News.
Starting today, taxis must accept at least 2 forms of e-payment. The Transport Department says the mandate's first-day rollout has been smooth so far.
At the taxi stand near Tsuen Wan West MTR station, notices have been put up reminding passengers to check which e-payment methods are accepted before boarding. Under the new mandate, taxis must provide at least 2 electronic payment options. One must be QR code-based, such as WeChat Pay Hong Kong and Alipay Hong Kong, while the other must be non-QR code methods, including Octopus cards, credit cards, or FPS. Without reasonable explanation for failure to comply, taxi drivers could face a maximum fine of $5,000 and 6-month imprisonment. 90% of Hong Kong's taxi drivers are said to have installed systems that support e-payment. Transport Department officers could be seen inspecting implementation. Also on the ground this morning was Commissioner for Transport Winnie Tse. Passengers interviews say payment becomes much more convenient, eliminating the need to handle cash or wait for change. Some taxi drivers welcome the change, saying quicker transactions allow more trips and boost business. But not all cabbies are convinced. This driver says he did not feel much difference, adding that while the industry must comply with government requirements, some tourists may still prefer paying with cash. The Transport Department says overall operations have been smooth on the first day, but many taxis still haven't put up notices listing accepted e-payment methods.
Public transport is the backbone of our transport system in Hong Kong. So I expect to work very closely with the operators of our public transport operators as well as cross-boundary transport operators so as to enhance the service and to keep our public transport #1, the very good reputation.
Tse adds that payment platform stickers are provided free of charge, so more efforts will be made to educate drivers. Addressing concerns about weaker network signals at boundary taxi stands, which could affect e-payments, Tse says government Wi-Fi services are available and she believes the issue won't be significant.
Fares have been adjusted for the city's 6 main outlying island ferry routes, with the Cheung Chau route experiencing the biggest hike. Some residents said the fare hike has increased their economic burden, while some tourists said they might reconsider visiting the islands. Timothy Lee has more.
At the Central Ferry Piers, various ferry companies have displayed the latest fee schedule. Ordinary ferry adult fares for the route traveling between Central and Cheung Chau experienced the greatest jump, increasing to $16.7, which is an increase of 13%. Fast ferry fares have also risen to $32.9. For Sundays and public holidays, ordinary ferry fares have risen to $24.8 and $47.6 for fast ferries. Some Cheung Chau residents shared their thoughts on the latest fare hike. This woman said residents on the island have no choice, noting that the increases are a major economic burden for them. While this man echoed the sentiment, adding that islanders can only depend on these ferries to reach the city center. Meanwhile, ordinary ferry adult fares for the route traveling between Central and Yong Shu Wan on Lamma Island rose to $24.9, further increasing to $34.7 for Sundays and public holidays. As for the routes to Mui Wo and Pang Chau, all ordinary ferry services have been cancelled, with fast ferries remaining the sole option. This as both routes experienced a decrease in fares, with the fares for the Pang Chau route dropping to $31.9 and the Mui Wo route dropping to $33.5. Addressing the latest measure, the Transport Department said it will continue to improve the quality of the city's ferry piers and increase their commercial spaces, adding that assisting contractors to expand their sources of income could alleviate pressure caused by the fare hikes in the future. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
And that's the news. Thank you for watching.